In 2025, the United States is facing inflation levels higher than anything seen in decades. Housing, gas, and food prices are all climbing. Even a cup of coffee or a fast food meal makes us think twice. Meanwhile, most people's incomes aren't keeping up, and credit card debt has reached record highs. As a result, many fall into the same cycle, working harder than ever, yet still feeling like money is never enough. We cut back, we try to save, but then realize we're not any happier, we're just more exhausted. Morgan Housel, in his book The Art of Spending Money, offers a different perspective. The problem isn't only about earning more or tightening our belts. The real issue is how we spend. When used wisely, money can become a tool for freedom and happiness, but when used poorly, it turns into a chain that pulls us further away from the life we truly want. If you want to learn how to turn every dollar you spend into peace of mind, joy, and real freedom, hit that like button and subscribe. Because right now, we're about to dive into the art of smart spending, one of the most essential life skills of our time. Part 1. Conscious spending versus just saving or investing. For decades, Americans have been taught a default lesson. If you want to become wealthy, save more and invest smarter. Personal finance has often been reduced to two familiar words, save and invest. But Morgan Housel points out a truth that few people talk about. You can be great at saving, you can be smart at investing, but if you spend money the wrong way, it all falls apart. The reality is how you use money in your daily life is what truly determines your sense of happiness and freedom. Someone might have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a savings account, yet still feel deprived, stressed, and insecure because they keep spending on things that don't actually bring value. Housel calls this unconscious spending. It happens when we let emotions, advertising, or social comparison take the wheel. Your neighbor gets a new car, your friends post their Hawaii vacation on Instagram, your coworker flashes a brand new watch, and in an instant, you feel behind. So, you swipe your credit card for the luxury SUV or book that lavish vacation you don't really need just to soothe that feeling of inadequacy. But conscious spending is a completely different story. It begins with one simple question before every purchase. Will this expense make my life better in a way I truly care about? Take a simple example. A family in Texas might spend $4,000 upgrading their car from the standard model to the full option package. Heated seats, premium sound system, and a few features they'll barely use. Meanwhile, that same money could fund a summer trip with their kids, creating memories far more lasting than any luxury add-on ever could. Or consider a man in New York who spends hundreds of extra dollars each month on fancy dinners with colleagues, not because he enjoys them, but because he fears being left out of conversations. Yet that same money could go toward the guitar lessons he's always dreamed of, and it would bring him real, lasting joy instead of fleeting satisfaction. Conscious spending doesn't mean being strict or not allowed to enjoy life. It simply means redefining joy, from the instant rush of buying something to the deeper and more enduring joy of meaningful experiences. That might be a family trip, an investment in health, or something as simple as buying yourself free time by hiring a cleaner so you can enjoy quiet evenings with your kids. As Morgan Housel emphasizes, the most important skill isn't saving the most or earning the highest returns, it's spending the right way. Because if you don't learn the art of spending, every effort to save and invest is like pouring water into a leaky bucket. So the real question for each of us is this: are you using money to buy genuine joy and happiness, or just to cover up your envy of others? Part 2. The difference between admiration and envy. In today's society, especially in America in 2025, social media has turned everyday moments into a public stage. You open TikTok and see a young couple showing off their luxury condo in Miami. You scroll Instagram and notice an old classmate checking in from Santorini, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than your monthly salary. And instantly, a familiar thought creeps in. Why do they have that and I don't? Morgan Housel points out a subtle but powerful difference between two ways of reacting to other people's success: admiration and envy. Admiration happens when you look at someone's achievements and feel inspired. Wow, they did it. Maybe I can learn from that. Envy, on the other hand, is when someone else's success feels like a mirror reflecting your own shortcomings, leaving you dissatisfied, insecure, and sometimes even resentful. The danger, according to Housel, is that envy has an incredibly strong influence on financial decisions. When you're envious, you're no longer spending for yourself. You're spending to prove something to others. You don't really need a Rolex, but you buy it so you won't fall behind your coworkers. You don't truly need that overpriced penthouse, but you sign a crushing mortgage just to post a skyline view on Facebook. This is the trap that leaves many Americans wealthy on paper, but poor in spirit. They own more stuff, but have less freedom, more likes on social media, but less peace of mind. On the other hand, when you learn to shift envy into admiration, the picture changes completely. Admiration allows you to see someone else's success as an information, a reference point. Instead of asking, "Why don't I have what they have?" you start asking, "What did they do that I could learn from?" This shift not only protects you from impulsive spending, but also builds lasting motivation. Here's a real-world example. A young employee in California notices that a friend his age has already bought a home while he hasn't. If his reaction is envy, he might jump into a massive mortgage he can't afford, only to end up buried in debt. But if his reaction is admiration, he might instead study how his friend managed expenses, saved early, or chose a more affordable location. One reaction leads to financial ruin, the other to long-term sustainability. Housel emphasizes that the moment you clearly distinguish admiration from envy is the moment you take back control of your finances. Because when you're envious, you're living by someone else's wallet. But when you admire, you're learning to build a financial life that fits your own values. And so the essential question Housel leaves us with is this: are you spending money to buy real joy or just to cover up your envy of others?
Part 3. Expectations matter more for happiness than income. Here's a striking paradox. Today, the average American earns far more than their parents ever did, yet levels of anxiety, stress, and dissatisfaction are also much higher. Why is that? Morgan Housel explains that the problem isn't the absolute number on your paycheck, it's the gap between expectations and reality. Picture an American in the 1970s. Owning a car, having a color TV at home, and taking a short beach vacation once a year was enough to feel successful. But by 2025, as you scroll through TikTok and Instagram, you're bombarded with images of trips to the Maldives, multi-million-dollar homes, and picture-perfect lifestyles carefully staged for show. Your definition of a normal life shifts upward, and suddenly, even if you're making twice as much as your parents, you still feel like it's not enough. Housel emphasizes that happiness doesn't rise in direct proportion to income. Instead, it depends on the gap between expectations and reality. If reality exceeds your expectations, you feel happy. But if your expectations outpace reality, you feel dissatisfied, no matter how many zeros are in your bank account. Here's a simple example. A software engineer in Seattle earns $150,000 a year, a salary many would envy. But when he compares himself to friends buying million-dollar homes or driving Tesla Model X's, his expectations rise and he feels left behind. Meanwhile, a teacher in Ohio earning $60,000 a year, who only expects a modest house, a reliable old car, and weekends with family, ends up feeling far more content. The trap is that expectations are a bottomless pit. The more you achieve, the faster they climb. Today, you're thrilled with your new iPhone. But just a month later, when Apple releases the next model, your expectations shift again. This is why so many people, even after reaching financial success, still struggle to find peace of mind. So how do we escape this cycle? Housel doesn't suggest abandoning ambition, but instead learning to set realistic and intentional expectations. Rather than constantly comparing yourself to people wealthier than you, ask, what do I truly need to live comfortably and happily? With reasonable expectations, even a modest income can provide freedom and lasting joy. The key lesson is this: happiness doesn't come from earning more, but from expecting less, or at least expecting wisely. You can't control the economy, inflation, or the job market, but you can control your expectations. And that, not the size of your bank balance, is the real foundation of lasting happiness. Part 4. Saving and freedom. When we think about money, most of us immediately focus on income and investing. How much we earn, where to invest, what the returns will be. But Morgan Housel points out that there's one factor often overlooked, and it may matter even more than income or investment returns: saving. Why? Because saving isn't just the leftover balance in your account at the end of each month, it's freedom. Freedom to say no to a job that drains you. Freedom to spend time with your kids instead of endlessly working overtime. Freedom to walk away from a toxic environment without worrying about how you'll survive. Housel writes, "You're not wealthy because of how much you earn, you're wealthy because of how much you keep that buys you freedom." This is a total shift in perspective. In America in 2025, many high earners, doctors, lawyers, tech engineers, still feel trapped. Their spending grows in lockstep with their salaries. They drive luxury cars, buy big homes, and take expensive vacations. But when work becomes unbearable, they can't stop because mortgages, credit card bills, and social expectations keep them locked in the cycle. By contrast, someone with an average income who builds the habit of saving, who keeps their lifestyle below what they could show off, actually holds real power, the power of choice. If their boss demands weekend work, they can decline. If they want to take a few months off to learn new skills, they can. This freedom doesn't come from having millions in the bank, but from controlling spending and saving habits. Imagine having $20,000 saved. It may not sound huge, but it can be a runway for change. The courage to quit a draining job for a better one, to invest in learning about personal finance, or even to start a small project of your own. Meanwhile, someone with no savings is forced to cling to their current job, no matter how miserable it is. The key is, saving doesn't have to mean living miserably. It doesn't mean cutting out every Starbucks coffee or never eating out. Housel emphasizes that saving is about priorities, choosing to keep a portion of your income to buy back freedom in the future, instead of spending it all on temporary appearances today. The truth is, freedom is what everyone longs for, yet few realize it's built slowly, one small saving habit at a time. Housel calls it an investment in peace of mind, because in the end, you'll see that a strong savings account not only helps you survive, it helps you live life on your terms. So, here's the question. Do you want money to be the chain that drags you along, or the ticket that sets you free? The answer lies in the saving habits you start building today.
Part 5. Experimenting and avoiding future regret. One of the greatest human fears isn't failure, it's regret. Regret for not trying, not daring to change, not living differently while you still had the chance. Morgan Housel emphasizes, if there's one cost in life you should truly fear, it's not losing money, it's losing years to regret. He writes, "You can make back the money you've lost, but you can never buy back the time that's gone." Most of us are tied down by the illusion of safety, afraid to try a new path, hesitant to invest in ourselves, reluctant to start a new habit for fear of failing. But it's ironically this refusal to try that traps many people in cycles of regret. Housel suggests a different mindset. Treat experimentation as a wise expense. Invest a little in things you're uncertain about, because even if they don't pay off big, they still leave you with lessons. And sometimes those lessons are more valuable than money itself. Take this example. In America, many people spend their whole lives stuck in jobs they hate, paralyzed by fear of change. They tell themselves, "I'm not good enough to start a business," or "I don't have the time to learn new skills." Then, 20 years later, they look back and regret not trying when they were younger. Meanwhile, someone else might take the leap into a small startup. Even if it fails, the experience equips them with skills, connections, and resilience, eventually leading to success in another field. Experimentation applies to money too. Instead of pouring all your savings into a single, safe investment you don't really understand, try dividing it. A portion to learn about stocks, another to study real estate, another to explore digital markets. This approach not only reduces risk, but also helps you discover where your true interests and strengths lie. Most importantly, experimentation protects you from future regret. Housel points out that when older people reflect on their lives, their biggest regrets aren't about failing too much. They're about not trying enough. They wish they had learned a new skill, dared to change careers, spent more time with family, or simply lived more authentically. Now imagine yourself at 70, looking back on your life. Would you rather say, "At least I tried, I learned, I lived fully," or whisper, "If only I had"? Experimentation won't eliminate failure, but it does eliminate regret. And in the end, regret is the most expensive price anyone can pay. So the real question isn't, "If I try, will I fail?" It's, "If I don't try, will I regret it for the rest of my life?"
Part 6. The right pace, avoiding the race beyond your limits. In today's fast-moving American society, faster has almost become an unspoken slogan. Cars must go faster, careers must advance faster, bank accounts must grow faster, and the dream home must arrive sooner. But Morgan Housel warns, pushing too hard, too fast may be the quickest route to burnout. Housel compares money to a car. If you drive too slowly, you'll never reach your destination. But if you keep flooring the gas, you'll run out of fuel, burn out the engine, or crash. The key, he says, isn't to drive the fastest, but to drive the longest. The reality is, many Americans are trapped in the rat race. They take on mortgages for homes just slightly beyond their means, buy luxury cars to signal status, or work 70 to 80 hours a week chasing financial milestones. From the outside, they look successful. Inside, they're exhausted, anxious, and missing the one thing money is supposed to buy: peace of mind. Statistics show that many high-income households in the US still live paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't earn enough, but because they've accelerated their spending and debt far beyond their real capacity. When the economy shifts, like during the inflation spike of 2022-2023, these families are often hit the hardest. Housel suggests a different mindset. Choose the right pace. Move forward, strive for growth, but don't run yourself into the ground. The right pace means investing in your future while still leaving time to live in the present. It means accepting that you don't need the biggest house on the block, as long as you feel safe, comfortable, and free from crushing debt. Think about it. If life were a 26-mile marathon, would you sprint with all your energy in the first 5 miles? Of course not. The wise runner knows how to conserve energy, when to push, and when to ease off to keep breathing steadily. Money works by the same principle. Psychologically, over-acceleration often comes from comparison. We see neighbors driving new cars, friends posting luxury vacations, colleagues buying second homes. And suddenly we find ourselves in a race we never signed up for, paying the price with stress, sleepless nights, and sometimes even broken relationships. The right pace begins with asking, how much is enough for me to feel content? Once you find that number, you realize freedom and happiness don't come from running faster than others. They come from running at your own rhythm. In the end, Morgan Housel reminds us, money isn't meant to prove you're better than someone else. It's meant to protect and nourish the quality of your life. Foolish spending is when you turn money into a tool of comparison. Wise spending is when you turn money into a shield that safeguards what you truly treasure: your family, your freedom, and the experiences that give life meaning. In today's America, where inflation, credit card debt, and social pressure weigh heavily, this lesson couldn't be more urgent. Instead of being swept into the endless race, ask yourself, where am I on this parabola? Am I climbing with balance or sliding down because I've pushed too hard? Perhaps happiness isn't found at the peak, but at the moment you know when to stop, when you can look back, smile, and say, I'm living at the rhythm that's truly mine. If you found these insights valuable, hit like and subscribe. In the next videos, we'll keep exploring not just how to manage your money, but how to manage your life so you can be rich not only in finances, but in meaning.